You don't believe, you're not for the vaccine. That is a conspiracy theory.
But I'm not against the vaccine either, James. That's my whole point.
Right.
This is one of those calls that would be almost amusing if the stakes weren't so high. A caller rings into LBC to tell James O'Brien that she's not anti-vaccine, not a conspiracy theorist, just someone who's into natural health and feels unfairly labeled. On the surface, it sounds calm, reasonable even. But listen closely, because this is how misinformation sneaks in through the side door. Before we jump in, tell me where you're tuning in from. And remember to like and subscribe. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming. What makes this exchange unsettling isn't shouting or aggression. It's the confidence with which half-formed ideas are presented as equivalent to medical expertise. The caller frames herself as being in the middle, pressured by angry voices on both sides, while quietly repeating the same arguments that fuel distrust in science and public health. And that's the danger. These views don't arrive wearing a warning label. They arrive dressed as personal choice, wellness, and common sense. We've all heard versions of this before, online, in group chats, in wellness spaces that blur the line between healthy skepticism and outright rejection of evidence. And when those ideas make it onto national radio, they stop sounding fringe. They start sounding normal. So let's watch this together. Pay attention to how quickly certainty gives way when a simple, everyday question is asked, and notice how one calm analogy exposes a much bigger problem underneath. I'll give you my thoughts at the end.
Oh, hi, James. I've been really scared to ring about this subject. And the reason is because, I'll give you the background. So I have always been in the natural health world. It's what I do for a living and it's what I believe inherently. So my default is to do everything naturally. I exercise, eat well, take the relevant supplements, all that kind of thing. So when the vaccine came about...
As long as you're not seriously ill.
No, well, exactly.
Yeah.
But the way my needle moved was... I don't think I'm for the vaccine. Now, that doesn't make me a conspiracy theorist or weird person or anything like that. No, it doesn't.
Does it not?
And this is the problem. I'll tell you why it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because I took my mum for her jab. I took, I'm quite happy for that. I have, I don't discuss this with many people. And I said to you, the fact that even you just said, oh, it does a bit, that's so disrespectful to me. On the other side...
Well, it's really not, if it's true.
No, it's not. On the other side,
well,
I have those who are... Can I speak?
Yeah, well, of course you can, but you've just accused me of being disrespectful, so I need to defend myself. Okay. You don't believe... You're not for the vaccine. That is a conspiracy theory.
But I'm not against the vaccine either, James. That's my whole point.
Right.
That's my whole point. And it's this kind of pressure that's really made it difficult for me to make my decision. Now,
well, then speak to the scientists and the doctors.
Yes, which I have been listening. Within my circles, I would say the majority of people within my circles are very anti-vaccine, okay, because of obviously the information that we have from the natural health point of view. Now, the problem is
cobblers.
Because I've not been pro-vaccine necessarily, I've then been almost labelled as the term that's being used as awake. On the other side, people who know better. I'm not comfortable with that because I'm not in that category either. I'm just in the middle of just a person who says, I actually don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, then speak to people who do know.
Well, the problem is...
Speak to virologists.
Can I? Well, okay. So the position I've come
but why
to...
is that even controversial thing to say? If your car breaks down, do you go to a mechanic or do you go to your friends in your circles?
The position I came to yesterday...
Please, just tell me that, if you would.
Look, can I just say, though, the position I came to yesterday is I am going to have the jab. I am going to have the jab,
Good. Well done.
Okay. And the reason was because I spoke to somebody... Well, I've listened to lots of people, and this is what I wasn't getting the chance to do because everyone's so angry about this.
But no one's angry.
They are.
Well, maybe your mates are, but I think the question you need to ask them is if their car breaks down, will they talk to each other or will they drive to a mechanic's? If they need to have root canal surgery, will they get their mates round to do it in the kitchen or will they go to the dentist?
Very often you get second opinions. You go to a specialist.
Off another mechanic.
You go to a specialist or a mechanic. You go to another one. They give you two different quotes, two different ideas, two different diagnoses. And
no, they don't.
This isn't my car. This is my body.
Yes, exactly. Which is why you should be even more enthralled to experts and qualified people than you would be with your car. I mean, your argument is the opposite of what you think it is. You're suggesting that you would be more likely to trust your, quotes, circles and your natural mechanics than you would be to trust actually fully qualified, proven experts and people who spend their entire lives fixing cars.
The problem I have with this is that although the natural world isn't, we don't specialise in virology and vaccinations, obviously, that doesn't poo-poo the fact that the natural world the natural medicine isn't a scientific entity, which it is. I've
And
worked in this field for like
all of the
25 years of my life.
naturally occurring substances in the natural world that have efficacy in the context of treating illnesses have been absorbed into what we call not alternative medicine, but actual medicine. So again, get the jab and tell your friends next time their car breaks down to just join a Facebook group and see if that will fix their big end. Yeah?
I get that. I mean, last night, can I just say quickly, last night I was invited to an awake group for people who are awake to go along to a health rights meeting, which is about obviously not having your jab. And I think there's going to be, I hope the person who invited me is listening, but there's going to be like a 10-minute chant or something, or before we
that'll
start.
fix everything.
And you see, this is the world that I'm not part of.
But you're more part of it than I am.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm being invited into it, but I'm not, because there are many of us.
Listen, I'm out of time, and I've listened to you, and I wasn't disrespectful, because the people you're describing are cranks and crackpots, but I appreciate fully that calling them cranks and crackpots doesn't necessarily reach the parts that other words cannot reach. But my goodness me, this is a worry to me. I know it's only one switchboard, but the celebration, and I use the word cautiously, of the failure of the actual cranks and crackpottery to take over, it still makes a mockery of this notion of it being certain communities, which I think is quite toxic and deliberate and dangerous. But I wonder whether these world-beating take-up rates are going to suffer slightly when the offer is extended to younger people who perhaps aren't as conscious of their own vulnerability.
Now, let's zoom out and connect the dots, because this call doesn't exist in isolation. If you watched the previous clip we covered, you'll remember a caller who was clearly adrift, scrolling, searching, trying to make sense of a confusing world online. This one is different. This caller isn't lost anymore. She's found her people. She's found a framework, a community, a ready-made explanation for why experts can't be trusted and why instinct should come first. That's the shift worth paying attention to. What we're seeing here is the move from casual skepticism into a structured belief system, in this case, the so-called natural health world. And this didn't happen in a vacuum. It's the downstream effect of years of institutional failure, mixed messaging, and political leadership that eroded trust instead of reinforcing it. And when confidence in authority collapses, something else always rushes in to fill the gap. This is where James O'Brien does what he does best. He doesn't sneer, he doesn't mock. He reaches for a simple analogy that cuts straight through the fog. If your car engine fails, do you ask your mates in a group chat to fix it, or do you take it to a qualified mechanic? Everyone knows the answer, and that's why the analogy lands. But the most revealing moment comes in the response. This isn't my car, this is my body. As if that somehow makes expertise less important, not more. And right there is the core contradiction at the heart of the anti-science mindset. The idea that personal feeling and intuition should outweigh decades of training, evidence, and peer review. It sounds empowering. It feels autonomous. But it quietly dismantles the very concept of expertise. Then comes the detail that should make alarm bells ring. She casually mentions being invited to an awake group. There's chanting, ritual language, a shared sense of having secret knowledge. This isn't how scientific disagreement works. This is belief formation through identity and belonging. It's not about evidence anymore. It's about community. And that's the end point of this pipeline. When people are taught to distrust doctors, scientists, and institutions, there's always someone waiting to step in. Gurus, influencers, wellness authorities, people who offer certainty where real science offers nuance. They don't need to be right, they just need to sound confident. That's why this moment matters. Not because the caller is some cartoon villain, which she isn't. She's polite, thoughtful, and clearly trying to do the right thing. The real problem is the ideology that scoops people like her up, reassures them they're awake, and slowly pulls them away from reality. And against all of that, James's approach stands out. Calm, relentless, logical. He doesn't shout people into submission. He just keeps asking questions that bad ideas can't survive. So the question isn't really about vaccines anymore. It's about trust, about who we listen to when things get scary and complicated, and about what fills the space when that trust is broken.